The parking lot of Sterling Tech was crowded that morning. Investors from Japan stood beside Veronica Sterling, the company's CEO, as she gestured toward the gleaming glass tower ahead. Then she stopped. Her eyes landed on a 1987 Mustang. The paint was faded. Rust spread across the hood. Black smoke coughed from the exhaust. It was parked in a spot reserved for VIP guests. Veronica turned to her assistant, her voice sharp enough to carry. "Who parks this junk here? This is embarrassing." A man in a blue maintenance uniform stepped out of the car. His hands were stained with grease. He carried a plastic lunchbox. His name was Owen Carter. Veronica smiled. It was not kind. "That car is junk," she said loudly. "Seriously, who hired people like this?" The investors laughed. Some took photos. Owen stood still. His face turned red. He said nothing. He locked the car and walked toward the building with his head down. Veronica turned back to her guests, satisfied. But she did not know what that car really was, or who Owen Carter used to be. Owen Carter clocked in at 10 o'clock that night. The factory floor was empty except for the hum of machines cooling down from the day shift. He walked past rows of metal presses and assembly tables, his boots echoing on the concrete. His uniform smelled like engine oil. It always did. He worked the night maintenance shift at Sterling Tech. His job was simple. Clean the equipment, replace worn parts, make sure the machines were ready by morning. The pay was not much, but it came with health insurance. That was what mattered. Owen lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. The building was old. The paint peeled near the windows. The heating broke every winter, but the rent was cheap, and it was close to his son's school. Liam was 7 years old. He had his mother's smile and his father's quiet way of watching the world. 3 years ago, Owen's wife died in a car accident on the interstate. A truck ran a red light. She did not survive the night. Liam was 4 then. He still asked about her sometimes. Owen raised him alone. He worked nights so he could be there in the mornings. He made breakfast. He walked Liam to school. He picked him up in the afternoon and helped with homework at the kitchen table. When Liam went to bed, Owen left for his shift. Liam had asthma. It was not severe, but it required medication and regular checkups. Without insurance, Owen could not afford the prescriptions. That was why he stayed at Sterling Tech. The benefits were good. The work was steady. He did not complain. The Mustang in the parking lot was the only thing Owen kept from his old life. His father bought it new in 1987 with his first real paycheck from the steel mill. It was burgundy back then. Now the paint was dull and cracked. The engine rattled when it started, but it still ran. Owen's father died when Owen was 19. He left the car behind. Owen could have sold it 100 times. He never did. It reminded him where he came from. It reminded him that value was not always visible. Most people at Sterling Tech did not talk to Owen. The engineers walked past him without looking. The managers nodded, but never asked his name. To them, he was part of the building. A man who appeared at night and disappeared by dawn. But some of the older workers on the floor knew better. They had seen Owen fix machines that the engineers gave up on. Once a hydraulic press stopped mid-cycle and locked up. The technician said it needed a part from Germany. It would take 2 weeks. Owen spent an hour with a wrench and a voltmeter. The press was running again before the shift ended. One of the machinists, a man named Gene, asked him about it later. "You learned that in the Navy or something?" Gene said. Owen shook his head. "Just worked on engines growing up." Gene nodded. He did not push. Owen appreciated that. The truth was more complicated. Owen had not just worked on engines, he had designed them. He used to be a mechanical engineer at NASA. He worked on propulsion systems for deep space probes. He had a desk with his name on it. He had colleagues who respected him. He had a future that people envied. But when his wife died, everything stopped. Liam needed him. Owen could not focus. He could not sleep. The designs that used to come easily felt impossible. He requested leave. Then he resigned. He told himself it was temporary. That was 3 years ago. He took the job at Sterling Tech because it was quiet, because it gave him space to breathe, because it let him be a father first. Liam did not know his father used to work for NASA. He knew his dad fixed things. He knew his dad drove an old car that other kids laughed at. But he also knew his dad picked him up every day. He knew his dad made him breakfast. He knew his dad stayed. That morning, after the incident in the parking lot, Owen had gone home and found Liam sitting at the table. The boy had drawn a picture in crayon. It showed 2 stick figures standing beside a red car. "That's us," Liam said, holding it up. Owen looked at the drawing. The car had 4 crooked wheels and a smiling face on the front. "You made the car happy," Owen said. Liam nodded. "Because it's a good car, even if people laugh." Owen felt something tighten in his chest. He put the drawing on the refrigerator with a magnet. "They only laugh because they don't understand," Owen said quietly. Liam looked at him. "Do you understand, Dad?" Owen crouched down so they were eye level. "Yeah, buddy, I do." That night at work, Owen thought about the way Veronica Sterling had looked at him, the way she smiled when she called his car junk, the way the investors laughed. He told himself it did not matter. People had opinions. He had a job. He had his son. That was enough. But something in him had shifted. Owen walked to the break room and opened his locker. Inside was an old laptop he kept charged. He rarely used it, but tonight he took it out and sat down at the metal table. He opened a folder buried deep in the file system. Inside were schematics, technical drawings, simulation data. It was a project he had started 5 years ago, back when he still believed he could change the world. The file was labeled Project Phoenix. It was a hybrid engine design that recovered waste heat and converted it into usable power. NASA had reviewed it. They said it was brilliant. They also said it was too expensive to build. The materials were rare. The manufacturing process was too complex. It was not feasible. Owen closed the laptop. He stared at the blank wall in front of him. But there was something NASA did not have. Something Owen did not have back then either. Sterling Tech had new production technology, machines that could fabricate components NASA could only dream of. If Owen was right, the cost could be cut by 70%. He looked down at his hands. They were stained with grease, but they still remembered how to build. Owen opened the laptop again. There was once a time when his life was not like this. 3 days after the parking lot, Owen was in the factory repairing a metal press. The machine had been down for 2 weeks. The production line was behind schedule. Owen had identified the problem. A cam inside the press had cracked. He had submitted a parts request, but it had not been approved yet. He was on his knees inspecting the housing when he heard footsteps. Veronica Sterling entered the floor with Harold Bennett, the director of operations. Harold was a tall man in his 50s who wore expensive ties and smiled too much. He reported directly to Veronica. Everyone knew he played golf with her on weekends. Veronica gestured toward the press. "This one?" Harold nodded. "Down for 2 weeks, impacting output." Veronica frowned. She turned and saw Owen crouched beside the machine. "Why isn't this fixed yet?" Harold asked, his voice sharp. Owen stood and wiped his hands on a rag. "The cam is cracked. I put in a request for the replacement part, but it hasn't been approved yet." Harold's face tightened. "Excuses. This is why we're behind." Veronica folded her arms. This is exactly the problem, Harold. We need people who solve issues, not create them. Owen kept his voice steady. If you give me 30 minutes, I can fabricate a temporary cam from scrap materials. It'll keep the press running until the official part arrives. Veronica looked at him as if he had just suggested something absurd. She let out a short laugh. You? She said. Engineer a solution? She shook her head. Stick to mopping floors. She turned and walked away. Harold followed. Neither of them looked back. Owen stood there, the rag still in his hands. Around him, a few other workers had stopped to watch. No one said anything. After a moment, they went back to their tasks. Later that afternoon, Harold pulled Owen aside near the loading dock. Listen, Harold said quietly. I know you're capable. I've seen your work. But don't ever make her look bad again. Understand? Owen looked at him. I was just trying to help. Harold's expression did not change. I know, but she doesn't see it that way. Just keep your head down. Owen nodded. Harold walked away. That evening, Owen picked up Liam from school. The boy climbed into the Mustang and buckled his seatbelt. He was quiet for the first few blocks. Then he said, Dad, did someone laugh at the car again today? Owen glanced at him. Why do you ask? Liam shrugged. You look sad. Owen reached over and ruffled his son's hair. I'm not sad, buddy. Just tired. Liam nodded, but he did not look convinced. When they got home, Owen made dinner. Spaghetti with butter and salt. It was simple, but Liam liked it. They ate together at the small kitchen table. Liam talked about his day at school. He had learned about fractions. He did not like them. After dinner, Liam went to his room to read. Owen cleaned the dishes and sat down on the couch. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. He thought about what Veronica had said. Stick to mopping floors. He thought about the way Harold had looked at him, the warning in his voice. Owen had spent 3 years keeping his head down, 3 years being invisible. He told himself it was for Liam, that it was the right choice. But something had changed. He stood and walked to the small closet near the front door. Inside, on the top shelf, was an old cardboard box. He pulled it down and opened it. Inside were files, patent applications, research notes, emails from colleagues at NASA, all of it from another life. He found the folder labeled Project Phoenix. He opened it and looked at the first page. A technical drawing of an engine. Elegant, efficient, revolutionary. NASA had said no. They said it was not realistic, too costly, too complicated. But Owen knew something they did not. Sterling Tech's manufacturing systems were different now. Faster, more precise. If he was right, the Phoenix engine could be built for a fraction of the original cost. He closed the folder and put it back in the box. He sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the wall. Liam's voice came from the hallway. Dad? Owen looked up. Liam stood in the doorway in his pajamas. Yeah, buddy. Are you okay? Owen smiled. I'm fine. Go to bed. I'll be there in a minute. Liam hesitated, then nodded and went back to his room. Owen sat there a little longer. Then he stood, walked to the closet, and pulled the box down again. Owen waited until Liam was asleep. He checked on him twice. The boy was curled under his blanket, breathing softly. A small nightlight shaped like a rocket glowed in the corner. Owen closed the door quietly and went to the kitchen. He opened his laptop and set it on the table. The screen lit up. He navigated to the hidden folder and opened the Phoenix file. The schematics appeared. Lines and measurements. Calculations he had done by hand years ago. Simulations that showed how the engine would perform under stress. Heat recovery rates. Fuel efficiency. projected costs. It had been beautiful once, a solution to a problem no one else had solved, an engine that could power deep space missions without carrying massive fuel reserves. It used waste heat from the combustion process and converted it back into mechanical energy. The efficiency gain was 43% compared to traditional designs. NASA had been impressed. They ran the numbers. They agreed it worked, but they also said it was not feasible. The materials required were expensive. The tolerances were too tight for mass production. Building even one prototype would cost millions. Owen had tried to argue. He revised the design. He looked for cheaper materials. He ran new simulations. But in the end, the project was shelved. Not because it was bad, because it was not practical. That was 5 years ago. Owen stared at the screen. Sterling Tech had equipment NASA did not. Advanced CNC machines, laser cutters, 3D metal printers. They were designed for high-precision aerospace components. If Owen could access them, the cost of building the Phoenix engine would drop by 70%, maybe more. He leaned back in his chair. The idea was forming in his mind. Slowly, carefully. What if he built it himself? Not the full production model, just a prototype. Something small enough to prove it worked. Something physical. The Mustang sat outside in the parking lot. The engine was old, worn out. If he replaced it with the Phoenix design, he could test it in a real vehicle. He could show people what it was capable of. Owen rubbed his face. It was a wild thought. Dangerous, even. If he failed, he would lose time. Money. Maybe his job. But if he succeeded, no one could ignore it. He thought about Veronica's face in the parking lot, the way she had dismissed him, the way she had called his car junk. He thought about Liam's drawing on the refrigerator, the smiling car, the 2 stick figures standing beside it. Owen closed the laptop. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Mustang sat under a streetlight. Rust and faded paint. But it still ran. It had carried his father to work every day for 20 years. It had carried Owen and his wife on their first date. It had brought Liam home from the hospital the day he was born. It was not junk. Owen made a decision. The next morning, he submitted a request to use the Sterling Tech workshop after hours. He claimed he needed space to perform personal maintenance on equipment. Harold approved it without asking questions. Owen suspected he felt guilty about what had happened. That night, after his shift ended, Owen stayed behind. He opened the garage bay and backed the Mustang inside. He stood in front of it for a long moment. Then he opened the hood. The old engine stared back at him, greasy, tired, ready to be replaced. Owen picked up a wrench. It was time to prove what junk could do. Owen worked on the Mustang every night for 3 weeks. He arrived at Sterling Tech at 10 in the evening and clocked out at 6 in the morning. But he did not go home right away. He stayed in the workshop until 7, sometimes 8. The Phoenix engine was not like anything else. Every part had to be precise. The tolerances were measured in fractions of a millimeter. He used scrap aluminum from the recycling bins. He machined custom fittings on the CNC lathe. He salvaged sensors from decommissioned equipment in the storage room. No one noticed at first. The night shift was quiet. The few workers who passed by assumed Owen was doing routine maintenance. He kept the Mustang covered with a tarp when he was not working on it. But Harold Bennett noticed. One night, Harold was leaving late after a conference call with a client in Tokyo. He walked through the factory floor on his way to the parking lot. The lights were still on in the workshop. He stopped and looked through the window. Owen was bent over the engine bay, welding a bracket onto the new motor. Sparks flew in brief flashes. The Mustang sat on a lift, its hood open, the old engine already removed and sitting in pieces on the floor. Harold took a photo with his phone. Then he left without saying anything. The next morning, Owen received an email. It was from Human Resources. He was required to attend a meeting at 2 o'clock that afternoon. The subject line read, Policy Compliance Review. Owen knew what it meant. He arrived at the conference room 10 minutes early. Veronica Sterling was already there. So was Harold. A woman Owen did not recognize sat at the end of the table. She wore a grey suit and held a leather folder. She introduced herself as the company's legal counsel. Veronica did not waste time. She opened a laptop and turned it toward Owen. On the screen was the photo Harold had taken. The Mustang on the lift. The engine exposed. Tools spread across the workbench. "What is this?" Veronica asked. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Owen looked at the photo. "I've been working on my car after hours. I submitted a request to use the workshop. It was approved." Harold spoke next. "The request said personal maintenance. This looks like a full engine replacement." Owen nodded. "It is. But I'm using scrap materials and working on my own time. I'm not violating the terms." The legal counsel opened her folder and slid a document across the table. "Section 7.3 of your employment contract states that any invention or design created using company resources becomes the intellectual property of Sterling Tech." Owen felt his stomach tighten. He looked at Veronica. She was watching him closely. "This isn't a company project," Owen said. "It's my personal vehicle." Veronica leaned forward. "But you're using our equipment, our materials, our facility. That makes it ours." She pushed a second document toward him. It was a transfer agreement. At the top it read, "Assignment of Intellectual Property Rights." "Sign this," Veronica said. "You transfer all rights to whatever you're building. Or you're terminated, and we file a lawsuit for theft of company property." Owen stared at the paper. His hands rested on the table. He did not move. "I need time to think about this," he said quietly. Veronica smiled, but it was not kind. "You have until tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Harold looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Owen, then at Veronica. He said nothing. Owen stood and left the room. That evening, he did not go to work. He sat in his apartment and stared at the agreement. Liam was in bed. The apartment was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. If he signed, the Phoenix engine would belong to Sterling Tech. 5 years of research, his father's legacy, the proof that he was more than a maintenance worker. All of it would be gone. If he did not sign, he would lose his job. Liam would lose his health insurance. The prescriptions would stop. The doctor visits would stop. Owen had $1,200 in his savings account. That would last 2 months. Maybe 3 if he was careful. He thought about calling a lawyer, but he knew how that would end. Sterling Tech had resources. Owen had nothing. He put the paper down and walked to the window. The Mustang was parked on the street below. Even from here he could see the rust on the hood. His phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Think carefully, Mr. Carter. We take intellectual property very seriously. This could get much worse for you." Owen deleted the message. He sat down on the couch and closed his eyes. But something else was coming. Something he did not expect. The call came at 1 in the afternoon. Owen was making lunch when his phone rang. It was Liam's school. The voice on the other end was calm but urgent. It was Mrs. Patterson, the school nurse. "Mr. Carter, Liam had an asthma attack during recess. We've given him his inhaler, but he's still having trouble breathing. You need to come get him." Owen dropped the sandwich he was holding. "I'm on my way." He grabbed his keys and ran to the Mustang. The engine turned over on the 3rd try. He drove faster than he should have. The school was 15 minutes away. He made it in 9. Liam was sitting in the nurse's office with an oxygen mask over his face. His skin was pale. His breathing was shallow and uneven. Mrs. Patterson stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "He's stable now," she said. "But you should take him to the doctor, just to be safe." Owen knelt beside his son. Liam's eyes were half closed. He looked tired. "Hey, buddy," Owen said softly. "I'm here." Liam nodded. He tried to smile, but it did not reach his eyes. Owen carried him to the car and drove to the urgent care clinic. The doctor examined Liam and said his oxygen levels were low. They needed to keep him for observation. They also recommended a stronger medication, the kind that required prior authorization from the insurance company. Owen filled out the forms. He sat beside Liam's bed and watched him sleep. The boy's chest rose and fell slowly under the thin hospital blanket. The doctor came back an hour later. She handed Owen a prescription slip. "This should help," she said, "but it's not covered by your current plan. You'll need to pay out of pocket or apply for an exception." Owen looked at the paper. The medication cost $320 per month. "How long does the exception take?" Owen asked. The doctor shrugged. 2 weeks, maybe more." Owen nodded. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. Liam woke up around 5 in the evening. His breathing was better. The color had returned to his face. He looked at his father and said, "Dad, I had a dream." Owen leaned closer. "What about?" "I dreamed the car was fast, really fast, like a rocket." Owen smiled. "Yeah?" Liam nodded. "It was red and shiny, and we were driving together. You were smiling." Owen felt something break inside his chest. He reached out and held his son's hand. "I'm sorry, Liam." The boy frowned. "For what?" Owen did not answer right away. He looked at his son's small hand in his, the IV line taped to his wrist, the hospital bracelet with his name printed in black ink. "For not being able to give you more," Owen said quietly. Liam shook his head. "You give me everything, Dad." Owen closed his eyes. He did not trust himself to speak. They stayed at the hospital until 8. The doctor cleared Liam to go home. Owen carried him to the car and buckled him into the back seat. Liam fell asleep before they reached the highway. When they got home, Owen put Liam to bed. He sat on the edge of the mattress and watched his son breathe. In and out. Steady now. Safe. He thought about the agreement sitting on his kitchen table. He thought about Veronica's ultimatum. Sign or lose everything. He thought about the Phoenix engine, half-finished, hidden under a tarp in the Sterling Tech workshop. He stood and walked to the kitchen. He opened his laptop and looked at the patent application he had filed 5 years ago. It was still pending. It had his name on it. Owen Carter, inventor. NASA had reviewed it. They had confirmed it was his work, his design, his idea. Sterling Tech had nothing to do with it. Owen picked up his phone. He opened his email and started typing. The message was addressed to the entire board of directors at Sterling Tech. He explained the situation. He attached the patent filing. He attached the original NASA correspondence. He requested 10 minutes to present his case at the next board meeting. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he sat back and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A reply from Ronald Hughes, the chief financial officer. It was brief. "Request received. Meeting scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. Be prepared." Owen exhaled. He looked toward Liam's room. The door was half open. He could hear his son's soft breathing. He thought about what Liam had said in the hospital. "You give me everything, Dad." Owen stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Mustang sat under the streetlight. Faded paint. Rust. But still running. He did not know what would happen on Friday. He did not know if the board would listen. He did not know if Veronica would let him speak. But he knew one thing. He was not signing that paper. Friday morning arrived cold and grey. Owen dropped Liam off at school and drove to Sterling Tech. He parked the Mustang in the far corner of the lot, away from the executive spaces. He did not want to draw attention. The board meeting was held on the 10th floor in a glass-walled conference room. Owen had never been up there before. The elevator ride felt long. When the doors opened, he stepped into a hallway lined with framed patents and photos of company milestones. A receptionist directed him to wait outside the conference room. Through the glass, he could see the board members taking their seats. Veronica sat at the head of the table. Harold was beside her. Ronald Hughes sat across from them, reviewing a folder. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opened. Ronald gestured for Owen to come inside. Owen entered. The room went quiet. Every face turned toward him. He was still wearing his maintenance uniform. He had not had time to change. Veronica looked at him with an expression that was difficult to read. Annoyance, maybe, or curiosity. Ronald spoke first. "Mr. Carter, you requested this meeting. You have 10 minutes. Use them wisely." Owen nodded. He set his laptop on the table and connected it to the projector. The screen on the wall lit up. The first slide showed a technical schematic. Clean lines, detailed measurements. The Phoenix engine. 5 years ago, Owen began, I designed a hybrid propulsion system while working at NASA. It uses waste heat recovery to improve fuel efficiency by 43%. The project was shelved because the cost to build it was too high. But that was before modern manufacturing technology became available. He clicked to the next slide. It showed a comparison chart. Traditional engine costs versus projected Phoenix costs using Sterling Tech's equipment. The difference was 70%. One of the board members leaned forward. It was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and grey hair. Her nameplate read, Dr. Susan Caldwell, Chief Technology Officer. "Where is this engine now?" she asked. Owen hesitated. "I've been building a prototype in my personal vehicle, using scrap materials and working after hours." Veronica's expression hardened. "Using company resources." Owen met her gaze. "Using scrap that would have been thrown away. And I filed the patent for this design in 2019, before I ever worked here. NASA has documentation confirming it's my intellectual property." He clicked to the next slide. It showed the patent filing. His name, the date, the official seal. Harold leaned toward Veronica and whispered something. She did not respond. Ronald looked at the screen, then at Owen. "Do you have proof that this engine works?" Owen nodded. "I have a video." He played the file. It showed the Mustang in an empty lot at dawn. The camera was shaky, probably handheld. The car's engine started. The sound was different. Smooth. Quiet. The exhaust emitted no visible smoke. The video cut to a dashboard display showing real-time performance metrics. Fuel efficiency, power output, heat recovery rate. The numbers were higher than any standard combustion engine. The room was silent. Dr. Caldwell wrote something in her notebook. Another board member, a man in a navy suit, crossed his arms and stared at the screen. "This is remarkable," Dr. Caldwell said. "If these numbers are accurate, we're looking at a commercial application worth billions." Veronica stood abruptly. "This is corporate espionage. He stole our manufacturing data to build this." Owen shook his head. "I didn't steal anything. I used publicly available specifications and materials that were already discarded. The design is mine. I can prove it." Veronica's voice rose. "You used our facility. Our equipment. That makes it ours." Ronald raised a hand. "Veronica, let him finish." She sat down, but her jaw was tight. Owen continued. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to offer a partnership. Sterling Tech has the infrastructure to bring this to market. I have the design. We can work together." The man in the navy suit spoke next. His name was Gregory Holt, the Vice President of Business Development. What are you asking for? Owen had thought about this. A licensing agreement. Sterling Tech manufactures and sells the engine. I retain the patent and receive royalties, 15% of net revenue. Veronica laughed. It was sharp and humorless. 15%? For something you built in our workshop? Owen looked at her. For something I designed 5 years before I met you. For something NASA validated. For something that could make this company $2 billion. The room went quiet again. Ronald closed his folder and leaned back in his chair. I propose we verify Mr. Carter's claims. Bring in an independent engineer to test the prototype. If it performs as stated, we negotiate terms. If not, we revisit the intellectual property question. Gregory Holt nodded. Agreed. Dr. Caldwell said, I'll oversee the testing personally. Veronica stood again. Her face was pale. You're seriously considering this? He's a maintenance worker. Ronald looked at her. His expression was calm but firm. He's an engineer, Veronica, and if what he's showing us is real, we'd be fools to ignore it. Veronica did not sit back down. She turned to Harold. This meeting is over. But Ronald shook his head. No, it's not. The board will vote on whether to proceed with testing. All in favor. 5 hands went up. Veronica's did not. Motion passes, Ronald said. He looked at Owen. We'll schedule the test for Monday. Be ready. Owen nodded. He disconnected his laptop and left the room. As he walked to the elevator, he heard footsteps behind him. It was Harold. Mr. Carter, Harold said. His voice was low. You just made a very powerful enemy. Owen stopped and turned. I didn't come here to make enemies. I came here to do what's right. Harold shook his head. Right doesn't matter in this building. Power does. And she has all of it. Owen stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. Harold called out, Watch your back! The doors shut. Owen rode down in silence. When he reached the parking lot, he sat in the Mustang for a long time. His hands were shaking. He had done it. He had stood in front of the board and told the truth. But he knew what was coming next. Veronica Sterling was not the kind of person who lost quietly. Owen did not make it to Monday. On Saturday afternoon, he received an email from Human Resources. The subject line read, Immediate termination notice. The message was brief. Effective immediately, his employment with Sterling Tech was terminated due to violations of workplace safety protocols. No specifics were provided. His final paycheck would be mailed within 2 weeks. His health insurance would end at midnight. Owen read it twice. Then he called Harold. The phone rang 4 times before Harold answered. His voice sounded tired. I can't talk about this, Owen. What safety violation? Owen asked. I followed every protocol. Harold sighed. It doesn't matter. The decision came from the top. There's nothing I can do. She's retaliating, Owen said. You know that. Harold did not respond right away. Finally, he said, I'm sorry. I really am. The line went dead. Owen sat at his kitchen table and stared at his phone. Liam was in the living room watching cartoons. He did not know yet. The next morning, a courier arrived at Owen's apartment. He signed for a thick envelope. Inside was a legal summons. Sterling Tech was suing him for theft of trade secrets, breach of contract, and destruction of company property. The damages requested were $500,000. Owen's hands went numb. He sat down on the couch and read the document 3 times. It accused him of stealing proprietary manufacturing data. It claimed he had damaged company equipment during unauthorized use. It listed Veronica Sterling as the primary complainant. He did not have $500,000. He did not have $5,000. On Monday, his phone rang. It was a number he did not recognize. He answered. The voice on the other end was smooth and professional, a man who introduced himself as Jonathan Pryor, attorney for Sterling Tech. "Mr. Carter, I'm calling to offer you a resolution." Owen said nothing. "My client is willing to drop the lawsuit and waive all claims." Pryor continued. "In exchange, you withdraw your patent application for the Phoenix engine, sign a 10-year non-disclosure agreement, and relocate outside of California within 30 days. Owen's throat felt dry. "And if I refuse?" "Then we proceed with litigation. Sterling Tech has significant resources, Mr. Carter. You do not. We will pursue this case aggressively. We will also file a report with Child Protective Services citing your inability to provide stable housing and medical care for your son." Owen stood up. His pulse was pounding in his ears. "You're threatening to take my son?" "We're simply noting that a prolonged legal battle will leave you financially incapable of meeting his needs. Courts take that seriously." Owen ended the call. He dropped the phone on the table and walked to the bathroom. He turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on his face. When he came back, there was a text message. It was from the same number. A photo. It showed a check for $100,000, made out to Owen Carter. Below it was a message. "This can all go away. Just sign." Owen deleted the message, but he could not stop thinking about it. $100,000. That was more money than he had ever seen. It would cover Liam's medical expenses for years. It would let them move somewhere safe, somewhere quiet. All he had to do was give up the Phoenix engine. Give up the proof that he was more than what Veronica Sterling thought he was. That evening, Owen picked up Liam from a friend's house. The boy was in a good mood. He talked the entire drive home about a game they had played, something involving superheroes and secret bases. Owen barely heard him. His mind was somewhere else. When they got home, Liam went to brush his teeth. Owen sat at the table and looked at the lawsuit papers. He looked at the unsigned agreement Pryor had emailed. He looked at the patent filing that still bore his name. He opened his wallet and counted the cash inside. $63. His savings account had $840 left. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Liam's asthma medication cost $320 a month without insurance. The urgent care visit had cost $210. Owen did the math in his head. He had maybe 6 weeks before he ran out of money completely. Liam came back into the kitchen. He climbed into the chair across from Owen and looked at the papers spread across the table. "Dad, what's all this?" Owen closed the folder. "Just work stuff, buddy." Liam tilted his head. "Are you in trouble?" Owen forced a smile. "No, everything's fine." Liam did not look convinced. He reached across the table and put his small hand on top of Owen's. "Dad, you told me that if something is right, we have to do it, even if it's hard." Owen looked at his son. The boy's eyes were serious, too serious for someone his age. "You remember that?" Owen asked. Liam nodded. "You said that when I didn't want to tell the teacher that someone cheated on the test. You said the truth matters." Owen felt his chest tighten. He looked down at their hands. His was rough and stained with grease. Liam's was small and clean. "Yeah," Owen said quietly. "I did say that." Liam smiled. "So you'll do the right thing, right?" Owen did not answer. He just held his son's hand. That night, after Liam went to bed, Owen sat alone in the dark. The lawsuit papers were still on the table. The agreement was still unsigned. He thought about the Mustang. He thought about his father. He thought about the engine that could change everything. and he thought about what kind of man he wanted his son to see. At 2 in the morning, Owen picked up his phone. He opened his email and typed a message to Jonathan Pryor. It was short. "No deal. See you in court." He hit send. Then he turned off his phone and went to bed. He did not sleep, but he did not regret it. Owen woke up the next morning with a headache. The apartment felt smaller than usual. He made breakfast for Liam, but he barely ate his own. The boy noticed. "Dad, you okay?" Owen nodded. "Just tired, buddy." After dropping Liam at school, Owen drove back to the apartment. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at his laptop. The inbox had 3 new messages. 2 were from debt collectors. 1 was a reminder that his car insurance payment was overdue. He closed the laptop. His phone rang. It was a reporter from TechCrunch. Owen had emailed them 2 days ago with the full story. He explained everything: the Phoenix engine, the lawsuit, the threats. He attached the patent documents and the video of the Mustang running. The reporter's name was Andrea Cole. Her voice was sharp and direct. "Mr. Carter, I've reviewed your materials. This is a strong story. But I need to verify a few things before we publish. Can you get me in touch with someone at NASA who worked with you?" Owen gave her the name of his former supervisor, a man named Dr. Leonard Fisher. He had retired, but Owen still had his contact information. "I'll reach out to him today," Andrea said. "If everything checks out, we'll run the piece tomorrow morning." Owen thanked her and hung up. He sat in silence for a long time. That afternoon, he picked up Liam from school. The boy climbed into the Mustang and buckled his seatbelt. He was quieter than usual. "Dad," Liam said after a few blocks, "why don't you work on the car anymore?" Owen glanced at him. "I've been busy, Liam." The boy looked out the window. "Is it because of the people who laughed?" Owen did not answer right away. He turned onto their street and parked in front of the apartment. He turned off the engine and looked at his son. "Liam, do you remember what I told you about doing the right thing?" Liam nodded. "You said even if it's hard, we still have to do it." Owen smiled, but it felt heavy. "Yeah, that's right." Liam tilted his head. "So, why are you sad?" Owen looked at the steering wheel. His hands rested on it, rough and worn. "Because sometimes doing the right thing costs more than you think it will." Liam reached over and put his hand on Owen's arm. "But you still did it, right?" Owen looked at his son. The boy's eyes were clear, trusting. He believed his father was doing the right thing because Owen had told him that was what mattered. Owen felt something break inside him, not in a bad way, in a way that made him realize what he had been holding on to: fear, doubt, the belief that he was not enough. He thought about the lawsuit. He thought about the $100,000 he had turned down. He thought about Veronica Sterling and her cold smile. Then he thought about Liam's drawing on the refrigerator, the stick figures, the smiling car. Owen nodded. "Yeah, buddy, I did." Liam smiled. "Good." That night, after Liam went to bed, Owen opened his laptop again. He checked his email. There was a new message from Andrea Cole. The subject line read, "Story goes live at 6 a.m. Owen read the draft she had attached. The headline was simple. Ex-NASA engineer builds revolutionary $2 billion engine in junk Mustang, gets crushed by Silicon Valley giant. The article laid out everything: the Phoenix engine, the patent filing, the video, Owen's termination, the lawsuit, the threats against his son. Andrea had also interviewed Dr. Fisher. He confirmed that Owen had designed the Phoenix engine while at NASA. He called it one of the most innovative propulsion concepts he had ever seen. Owen closed the laptop. He walked to the window and looked outside. The Mustang sat under the streetlight, rust and faded paint. But it was still there. Tomorrow, the world would see what it really was. Owen went to bed. For the first time in weeks, he slept. The article went live at 6 in the morning. By 7, it had been shared 5,000 times. By 9, it was trending on Twitter. By noon, it had been picked up by Reuters, The Wall Street Journal, and CNN. Owen's phone would not stop ringing. He turned it off. He took Liam to school and came back to the apartment. He made coffee and sat at the table. His laptop was open. He watched the comments roll in under the TechCrunch article. "This is disgusting. How can a company treat someone like this? I'm never buying from Sterling Tech again. Someone start a GoFundMe for this guy. That Mustang is a work of art." Owen closed the laptop. He did not know what to feel. Relief, maybe, or exhaustion. His phone buzzed. He had turned it back on to check messages. There was a voicemail from Ronald Hughes. Owen listened to it. "Mr. Carter, this is Ronald Hughes from Sterling Tech. I need to speak with you as soon as possible. Please call me back." Owen called. Ronald answered on the first ring. "Mr. Carter," Ronald said. His voice was tense. "We need to talk. Can you come to the office this afternoon?" Owen hesitated. "Am I still being sued?" Ronald exhaled. "That's what we need to discuss. 2 o'clock. Please." Owen agreed. He hung up and sat back in his chair. At 2 o'clock, Owen walked into the Sterling Tech building. The receptionist looked at him differently than before. She smiled. It was small, but it was there. "Mr. Hughes is expecting you," she said. 10th floor. Owen took the elevator up. When he stepped into the hallway, he saw Ronald waiting outside the conference room. The older man looked tired. His tie was loosened. His sleeves were rolled up. "Thank you for coming," Ronald said. He gestured toward the room. "Let's talk inside." They entered. The room was empty except for Dr. Susan Caldwell, the chief technology officer. She stood when Owen walked in. "Mr. Carter," she said. She extended her hand. Owen shook it. Ronald motioned for Owen to sit. "I'll be direct. The board held an emergency meeting this morning. We've reviewed the public response to the TechCrunch article. We've also reviewed the independent testing results from Dr. Caldwell." Susan nodded. "Your engine works, Mr. Carter. It exceeds every performance metric you claimed. It's extraordinary." Owen waited. He did not say anything. Ronald continued. "The board has voted to drop the lawsuit, effective immediately. We're also issuing a public apology for the way you were treated." Owen felt something shift in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. "What about Veronica?" Ronald glanced at Susan. She spoke next. "Ms. Sterling has been placed on administrative leave. The board is conducting a review of her conduct. She will not be returning to her position as CEO." Owen blinked. "She's out?" Ronald nodded. The board lost confidence in her judgment. The lawsuit, the public backlash, the stock drop. It was too much. Owen sat back in his chair. He did not know what to say. Ronald slid a folder across the table. "We'd like to make you an offer. Sterling Tech will license the Phoenix engine from you. You retain full ownership of the patent. We'll handle manufacturing and distribution. In exchange, you receive a licensing fee of $50 million and 15% of net revenue." Owen stared at the folder. He did not open it. "50 million," he said quietly. Susan smiled. "Your engine is worth far more than that, Mr. Carter, but we think it's a fair starting point." Owen looked at them. "Why now? 2 weeks ago you were trying to destroy me." Ronald's expression softened. "That wasn't us. That was Veronica. The board didn't know the full story until the article came out. When we saw what she had done, we knew we had to fix it." Owen opened the folder. Inside was a contract. Clean, professional, his name at the top. "There's one more thing," Ronald said. "We'd like to offer you a position. Chief Engineer of Propulsion Systems. You'd lead the development of the Phoenix engine and future projects. Salary is $250,000 a year, full benefits, flexible hours." Owen looked up. "You want me to work here?" "After everything." Susan leaned forward. "We want you to work with us, Mr. Carter, not for us. There's a difference." Owen closed the folder. He stood. "I need time to think about this." Ronald nodded. "Take all the time you need, but know that we're serious. We want to make this right." Owen left the building and walked to the parking lot. The Mustang was where he had left it. He sat inside for a long time. That evening, a press conference was held. Veronica Sterling stood at a podium in front of reporters. Her face was pale. Her voice was tight. "I made a serious error in judgment," she said. "I apologize to Mr. Carter and his family. Sterling Tech is committed to doing better." The questions came fast. Veronica answered a few, then left the stage. The cameras followed her until she disappeared through a side door. Owen did not watch it. He was at home with Liam. They were sitting on the couch. Liam had his head on Owen's shoulder. "Dad," Liam said, "are things going to be okay now?" Owen looked down at his son. He thought about the contract sitting on the kitchen table. He thought about the $50 million. He thought about the Mustang outside. "Yeah, buddy," Owen said. "I think they are. But the biggest victory was not the money. It was not the apology. It was not even the contract. It was the fact that Liam still believed in him." 6 months later, Owen stood in front of a small office building in Oakland. The sign above the door read, "Carter Propulsion Systems," in clean black letters. It was not fancy, but it was his. Inside, the space was simple. A few desks. A workshop in the back with tools and equipment. A whiteboard covered in equations. 5 employees worked there. All of them were young engineers who had been rejected by bigger companies. Owen had hired them himself. The Mustang was parked out front. It had a new license plate now. PHX 001. Phoenix 001. People stopped to look at it sometimes. Some took pictures. Owen did not mind. The engine inside was still the original prototype. Owen had been offered millions to sell it to a museum. He refused. It was not a relic. It was proof. That afternoon, Liam came by after school. He did this sometimes. Owen had arranged his schedule so he could pick his son up 3 days a week. The other 2 days, Liam rode the bus to the office. Liam walked into the workshop and dropped his backpack on the floor. He climbed onto a stool and watched his father work. Owen was adjusting a sensor on a new engine model. Smaller than the Phoenix. Designed for commercial trucks. 3 companies had already signed contracts to test it. "Dad," Liam said. "Can I help?" Owen looked at his son. The boy was holding a wrench. It was too big for his hands, but he held it carefully. "Sure," Owen said. "Hand me that socket set." Liam passed it over. Owen showed him how to tighten a bolt without stripping the threads. Liam watched closely. He asked questions. Good ones. When they finished, Owen wiped his hands on a rag and sat down beside his son. "You're getting good at this," Owen said. Liam smiled. "I want to build engines like you." Owen felt something warm spread through his chest. "You can build whatever you want, Liam, as long as you do it right." Liam nodded. Then he looked out the window at the Mustang. "Dad," he said, "do people still laugh at the car?" Owen followed his gaze. The Mustang sat in the fading sunlight. The paint was still faded. The rust was still there, but it looked different now. It looked like it belonged. "No," Owen said. "They don't laugh anymore." Liam tilted his head. "Why not?" Owen thought about it. He thought about the article, the lawsuit, the board meeting, the contract, all of it. But that was not the answer. Because now they see what it really is, Owen said. They see that something doesn't have to be new or shiny to be valuable. It just has to work. It just has to matter. Liam nodded slowly. Like people? Owen looked at his son. The boy's eyes were serious, understanding. Yeah, Owen said. Like people. They sat together in the quiet workshop. Outside, the sun dipped below the buildings. The streetlights flickered on. Owen stood and grabbed his jacket. Come on, let's go home. Liam hopped off the stool and picked up his backpack. They walked out together. Owen locked the door behind them. They climbed into the Mustang. Owen turned the key. The Phoenix engine started with a smooth hum. No smoke, no rattle, just power. Liam looked at his father. Dad, are you happy? Owen pulled out of the parking lot. He thought about the question. He thought about the apartment they still lived in, the same one-bedroom in Oakland. He had not moved. The money was in the bank. Saved. Invested. But their life had not changed much. Liam still went to the same school. Owen still made breakfast every morning. They still ate spaghetti with butter and salt. But something had changed. Owen was not invisible anymore. Not to the world, not to himself. Yeah, Liam, Owen said. I'm happy. Liam leaned back in his seat. Good, me too. They drove home through the quiet streets. When they pulled up to the apartment, Owen turned off the engine. They sat there for a moment. Liam looked up at his father. Dad, can I tell you something? Anything, buddy. I'm proud of you. Owen felt his throat tighten. He reached over and put his hand on Liam's head. He did not trust himself to speak. Liam smiled. Then he unbuckled his seatbelt and climbed out of the car. Owen sat alone in the Mustang for a few more seconds. He looked at the steering wheel, the cracked dashboard, the faded seats. It was still the same car, but it was not junk. It never had been. People asked him sometimes what it felt like to win against $1 billion company, to prove everyone wrong, to go from a maintenance worker to the head of his own firm. Owen always gave the same answer. He did not beat anyone. He just reminded them of something simple. Do not judge people by what they drive, or what they wear, or what job they have, because sometimes the most valuable things are the ones everyone else calls junk. Owen got out of the car and walked inside. Liam was already at the table pulling out his homework. Owen sat down beside him, and for the first time in a long time, he knew exactly where he belonged.